People call James Garner the smooth, charming hero of movies and TV. The guy from Maverick and the Rockford Files. Jack Elam, on the other hand, looked like a bad guy from a Wild West movie. 1. I squint at that gruff laugh and a face that looks like it was shaped by the sun in the desert. They were very different on film. Not many individuals knew the truth off-screen. James Garner and Jack Elam had one of the most surprising friendships in Hollywood. When Garner first encountered Elam on the set of a Western in the late 1950s, he had no idea what to anticipate. Elam was already an experienced actor who had played outlaws and gunmen. Garner, who was still fresh to stardom, felt Elam might be one of those tough guys who kept his distance. But as soon as Elam opened his mouth, everything changed. He told a joke that was so bizarre and funny that Garner couldn't stop laughing. That was the start of something real. A friendship based on respect and fun, not fame. The two would meet again and again on the sets of westerns and at meetings of old Hollywood cowboys over the years. There was always a deeper tale about devotion, struggle, and how both guys deal with the darker side of the film industry that people didn't know. James Garner eventually chose to tell the truth about Jack Elam in his later years. Not the Hollywood legend, but the guy behind the crooked smile. Garner and Elam worked together for the first time in the late 1950s. The production was hard because of the long hours, bad weather, and even worse egos. Garner was still working to earn his spot, but Elam had already built a name for playing crazy villains who could steal a scene with just one look. Elam was the reverse of what he played when the camera was off. He was courteous, smart, and oddly gentle. Garner saw it right away. Garner later claimed that Jack wasn't the type of guy who needed to talk loud. He came in, did his job, and made everyone laugh. Elam would sit with a group of people during lunch breaks and tell them crazy stories about how he grew up poor, lost an eye in an accident when he was a kid, and worked as an accountant before Hollywood knew his name. Garner was quite interested. At that point, he understood that Jack Elam was more than just a character actor. He was a survivor who had been through harsh times and shame but still managed to grin. Garner liked that, maybe because he had been through a lot of hard times before he became famous. That first endeavor didn't make them best friends right away, but it did make something special. Trust between people in an industry that didn't have much of it. Most people thought Jack Elam was the bad guy with the weird eyes, but not many knew the full story behind that visage. Jack worked as a bookkeeper when he was younger. He didn't grow up in show business. He fought his way in. It was sad but true that he lost sight in one eye. A pencil mishap during a scuffle at a Boy Scout meeting hurt his left eye for good. Jack didn't try to hide the scar, instead, he made it a hallmark. Elam didn't pretend to be a nasty man when Hollywood required one, he was one. Jack made peace with his past in a way I never could, Garner remarked later. He didn't try to get away from it. He was proud to wear it. He was very amazed by how honest that was. Elam was in pain, though, even if he was laughing. He had witnessed how frigid the business was since he was typecast, underpaid, and ignored. Garner was familiar with that world as well. They often talked about how Hollywood could make someone famous one day and then forget about them the next. Their friendship was like a small island of truth in a sea of lies. Years later, when Garner finally spoke, he remarked, "Jack Elam was the most real man I ever met in a business full of actors pretending to be real. People on set couldn't understand them." Garner was smooth, quick-witted, and calm under pressure. Elam seemed crazy, unpredictable, and nasty. But when they were together, they were amazing. After each take, they would sit together and make fun of the directors, the never-ending retakes, and how producers treated performers like props. Elam would take out a cigar, light it, and smile at Garner. "Jimmy," he would remark, "you're too good-looking for this dirty business." Garner would chuckle and say, "You're too ugly to be this nice." People liked their jokes, but what kept them close was how honest they were. Garner subsequently claimed that Elam was one of the few persons who never flattered anyone, not even the chiefs of studios. Garner remembered that he would tell a producer right to his face that a script was bad. And for some reason, they still adored him. They were an unusual pair that showed everyone that character is more important than looks. By the 1960s, both guys were well known in American westerns. Garner's charisma and Elam's strange energy made many dusty treks and tavern scenes come to life. Hollywood appreciated how they worked together, even though they weren't usually in the same movies. But there existed a quiet language between Western performers when the cameras weren't rolling. They looked after each other, stuntmen, cowboys, and the character players who made the frontier come alive. Elam was always the first to purchase a round of drinks and the last to leave an extra who was having a hard time. Garner used to say that the Western family wasn't about becoming famous. It was about showing respect. Garner said that Jack was the kind of guy who treated the janitor the same way he treated the star. That's why people believed in him. Both guys sensed the writing on the wall as TV westerns started to fade. But instead of bitterness, they shared gratitude. Elam once told Garner, "We had our time. And it was a damn good one." Hollywood wasn't always nice. A lot of classic Western actors were left behind in the 1970s when the business started to focus on action, thrillers, and modern dramas. Garner was able to change who he was with the Rockford Files, but Elam had a hard time. He was still smart and witty, but the calls came less regularly. Garner saw it. He would often ask Jack to help with tiny projects or TV shows merely to keep him busy. Garner said he never begged for help. "I made sure he didn't have to, though." Those were the years when their friendship was put to the test. Men sometimes become selfish because of fame, but Garner was always faithful to Elam. "He was a part of my story," Garner added later. "And I wasn't going to let Hollywood forget about him." Everyone remembers how Elam laughed. That gruff, memorable sound that could fill a room. But Garner knew that there was loneliness behind it. Jack never played the game in Hollywood. He didn't care about premieres and didn't read gossip columns. He led a calm life, loved his family, and liked going fishing more than going to parties. Garner liked that Jack was the real thing. He said he didn't do anything to get publicity. He did what he did because he loved stories. Later, when reporters asked Garner what made Elam remarkable, he didn't say anything about his talent or fame. He remarked that Jack's chuckle emanated from agony, but it made everyone around him feel better. Years after their first work together, Garner and Elam worked together again on a little TV show. Most of the crew was fresh, youthful, and fast-paced, and they cared more about style than substance. But when Garner saw Elam come in, everything felt right again. The two guys fell back into their old patterns. They made fun of each other, told stories, and added a bit of classic Hollywood charm to a modern set that really needed it. It was like coming home. Garner added that the reunion reminded everyone, including Garner, of what was truly important: loyalty, humor, and passion for the trade. Garner has remarked that Elam taught him more than any other director he ever worked with. "Jack showed me that being successful doesn't entail being someone else. It means living without losing yourself." That was true in Elam's life. He didn't have trophies on his walls, but he had the respect of famous people like John Wayne and new people just starting out. Garner found in him a kind of wisdom that Hollywood couldn't buy. "Jack made me laugh," Garner remarked. "But more than that, he made me be honest." The golden age of westerns came to an end, and so did many of the individuals who made it great. Garner didn't expect it to hit him as hard as it did when Elam died in 2003. "He wasn't just another actor," he said in a low voice. "He was like family." Garner went to his friend's memorial in quiet, choosing to remember the good times instead of the bad. But something changed inside. He sensed that the Hollywood he knew, with its guts, fun, and loyalty, was no longer there. Garner finally talked about it years later in an interview. Garner smiled as the journalist inquired about bad guys from old Hollywood. "Let me tell you something," he said. "Jack Elam wasn't a bad guy. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met." He talked of Elam's bravery, sense of humor, and how he never allowed his features define him. Garner remarked that his crooked eye saw better than most people's eyes. The interview spread like wildfire. Fans eventually got to hear what Garner had been keeping from them for years. Elam once helped Garner get through a tough time: a lawsuit, being tired, and health issues. Later, Garner said, Jack was the only one who contacted me every week to see how I was doing. No press, no publicity, just a pal. That's what he meant when he spoke the truth. Jack's kindness wasn't for show. It was true, quiet, and steady. Fans still laugh at Elam's crazy faces and smile when they watch vintage westerns. But Garner wanted them to see more. Look closer, he told them once. You'll meet a man who turned his pain into laughter. That's acting for real. Garner's tribute let people see Elam in a new light, not as a sidekick or comic relief, but as a true American original. Garner finally wrote it down plainly in his memoir. Jack Elam was the kind of actor I liked best. Rough, unpredictable, and hard to forget. He improved the business merely by being there. He also said, if I ever played a hero well, it's because I worked with men like Jack, who were real-life heroes. So, what did Garner want to tell the truth about? It wasn't a secret or a controversy. It was easy. James Garner said that Jack Elam, the actor who played bad guys, was one of the funniest, kindest, and most loyal people he ever encountered. He was living proof that people who look tough may be very kind. Garner said it best. Jack Elam showed me that you don't need flawless vision to see the truth. You only need a good